Hello, art teachers. Today's lesson is about teaching your students to create a character. This can be done as a standalone lesson or in conjunction with a writing project. This is a great project to do in cooperation with an ELA teacher or to fulfill any literacy standards you may have in your art curriculum. So this project is specifically about art for storytelling. The characters they're going to be making are part of a story that they make up. The pictures they are drawing are not meant to stand alone just as visual images, but to be part of a story and have characteristics. And this is to encourage the students to either actually write about them or at least talk about them, be able to tell their story, and describe their characters. This is a great premise for a lesson because kids love it and it can be taught at any grade and using any medium. So whatever materials you have on hand, it's great for a cart, it's great for distance learning. You can challenge them to come up with a character and a backstory. So you want to start with a discussion. Kids love to talk about this. So who is your favorite character? Who can you name that's a great hero? What character is a villain? Okay, who can tell me their favorite animal character? What about your favorite cartoon? Who is funny? What's a character that's really funny? Or a really scary character? Does anyone know any characters that are really scary? Which character would you like to meet? So this is going to get them thinking and imagining characters that they can use in their own drawing. Really engage them with things they're already interested in. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of storytelling. Hundreds and thousands of years ago, people did not have books. They didn't have television, they didn't have video games, but they did have stories. And people would tell stories. They would tell the same stories for years and years, and then other people would tell those stories and they would make up new details and change things. Because not everyone had a book or a painting of these characters, everyone would have to imagine the characters in their own minds. People like to sit around in circles and listen to stories. Wherever you go in the whole world, there are storytellers. Every country and every culture has their own stories that tell about the world that they lived in and the type of animals and people and nature that were around them. Very often people would sing the stories or have music play along while they were telling the stories. This made the stories more fun and dramatic and also helped people remember the stories. Can you think of any songs that are stories? Maybe in music class you've heard some. Now let's talk about some of the types of stories out there that have characters that you might already know. Myths are very old stories, and they often have magical creatures or talking animals or characters that can transform from one thing to another. Fables and folk tales. I bet you know what folktale this is from. Look at these children eating this old lady's house. What story do you think that's from? What about this one? Do you recognize these characters? Of course you do. You don't need to see any writing at all. You can tell by looking at the characters which fable or folktale this is from, because fables and folktales are stories that most everybody has heard. Fables and folktales are usually told to teach children a lesson. Like, don't go near that crazy old witch in the woods, or don't stop and talk to wolves. People used to tell their children fables and folk tales to keep them safe and make sure they didn't go too far from the house or get lost in the woods. Fables and folk tales often have witches or talking animals, and they almost always have children. What about fairy tales? Fairy tales are also imaginary stories, and they often have princes and princesses and monsters and witches, and fairy tales usually have some adventure in them, and a fairy tale usually has a happy ending. Now those were all very old stories, but new stories have superheroes. And of course, superheroes have superpowers. The ones that are good we call superheroes. Ones that are bad we call supervillains. But did you know that Thor is actually from a myth? Thousands of years ago, people in Scandinavia thought that Thor was a real god and he made thunder. Then there's manga and anime. These are both from Japan. Do you know the difference between manga and anime? If it's drawn on a piece of paper or in a book and it doesn't move, that's manga. But if it moves, if it's animated, like in a video, a cartoon, or on TV, that's anime. You know what else comes from Japan? Transformers. The great thing about characters is even if they start in another country and another language, you can learn about the characters and stories in your own language. Some stories have very ordinary heroes. You wouldn't think there was anything special about them at all. They're just going through their lives, solving problems, and going on adventures. Maybe you would like to have an ordinary hero. You could write a story about yourself, and you could be the hero. So now, what kind of character will you make? Let's think about it. Before you draw anything, you have to make some decisions. Is your character going to be an animal? A monster? Is it going to be magical? Or a person? Are you going to just draw one character by himself? Or are you going to have a whole team that works together? Storytellers need to think about their characters before they write the story. Does the character have a power? A weakness? A special skill? Is there something that your character wants or is trying to get? Is your character dangerous? Or is your character in danger? What makes your character so special? Is your character good or bad? Are they on a mission? Are they trying to find something or get something or save someone? You get to decide what your character looks like, but also all the important things about your character too that will be important in your story. Here are some of my students' works. I've only asked them to come up with names for their characters, but a lot of them have given me a little story as well. In case you can't see this clearly, this two-headed monster steals spaghetti. Look, they both have a bowl of spaghetti that they stole from someone. And this one I love, Black and White Man. No. Now you gotta beware of Mr. Ice. He can shoot ice out of his hands and is very strong. Also, he's evil. And this unicorn eats animals, apparently. So he may look like a nice unicorn, but watch your pets. And this is my all-time favorite. This is one of my all-time favorites. My second grader wrote this on the back. If you see a dinosaur named Danger, you have to run because he can bite your head off. And that's what makes this such a fun assignment, because especially with the younger kids, they want to tell you the story of what they've drawn. So often I'm distracted and I'm moving around the room and trying to help everyone, and I don't take the time to listen to everyone's story. But they want to tell you the story, and they've got a story in their head while they're working, whether they write it down or not. So as I said, I don't really have a required writing component for this assignment because I'm doing it with usually second or third graders as a short assignment. And I'm just asking them to maybe put a name on their character and just be able to tell me a few things. However, if you're looking to expand this lesson, level it up, work in conjunction with an ELA teacher, or satisfy an interdisciplinary component in your curriculum, you can definitely have the kids write a backstory for their character. Even if they don't write out an actual whole story, you can have them write out all the details of their character. You could have them put that same character in multiple scenes or have multiple characters in the same world. And of course, you can go all the way and have them write and illustrate a multi-page story. And so you can see how this can really expand all the way into high school if you're having them make an illustrated storybook or comics or a zine. But I think the exercise of thinking about characters before you start drawing and before you start writing, really having that brainstorming about characters they're familiar with and the different types of characters that they know really gives them a great jumping off point, and I've seen some really fun results. As always, I am Heidi Howe. I'm posting everything I know on my YouTube channel before I retire. So if you'd like to get all my free curriculum resources, like and subscribe. And as with all social media, the more you interact, whether that's liking or commenting, the more likely it is that that content is going to show up in your feed again. So if you want more, click more. I hope this helps you in your teaching, and I'd love to see pictures of how this works in your classroom. And I'd love to hear feedback and see pictures of how this has worked in your classroom.